Hey, welcome back, everyone. I see we are live. Just give me a thumbs up that you can hear me, and we will get started. Happy New Year to all as well. I know it's a bit belated in the oral sense. I know I've been posting on the platforms, but this is my first live broadcast video since New Year began. I'm getting feedback through the other device here. That's what happens when we go live. So yeah, great to see the comments coming in. While I've got you fresh here, please give a thumbs up, like and subscribe if you've not already done, and hit that bell icon for future videos. We have something, as the name suggests, in the thumbnail. I hope you like it all. Some of it will be a little repetitive as of the last year or two, but this is why we have to keep revisiting the obvious signs of the times with the prophecies contained within the Catholic Church especially, because geopolitics, manoeuvres of the military, we're seeing everything since the new year began, and it's very timely why 2026. I've mentioned this before last year on the programme, why 2026, and we'll get to that. But I just want to make it almost in a way of a sense of humour. All these coincidences coming together. Is it coincidences or is it God incidences? And although I've spoken about it, I want to put it in visual mode for you. So I've got a short presentation just to bring all these coincidences together, plus there'll be so much more that would fit around it, and many of you following me already know your stuff anyway. But I just want to say Happy New Year. Thank you for joining me and coming back. And already we've got over 100 people coming in live with very little notice given beforehand. I decided to just go for it while I could. Uh, if I had to make a little plea for you, is also this week I tried something new on the channel. I introduced a very great gifted man, an artist, Tommy Canning, and his videos, although very different to the platform, with 30 odd thousand subscribers right now, I would have expected more than just a few hundred to 2,000 views for the great work that he has done. I put up some videos leading along the last week before the great big interview that was published just in the last day or two. But if you watch those videos, the way his brother brings the art, the paintings into life, the sacred art, and speaking with his brothers and a few Irish friends over in Derry at the last procession a few months ago, these guys know everything from Maria Valtorta to Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich to the Divine Will Luisa Picaretta, the saints, the prophecies, the times. They know. It was like speaking to same like-minded people of myself with so much more. So I hope to get him back on for those categories, not just for his artistry. But please, after this live video, look at the most recent videos on the channel with Tommy Canning. Each one is a gift to see how that video comes to life with the help of his brother Alan. So please do that. They deserve a lot more than they're getting on the channel. It is something different, but it's all things Catholic, and I want to cover more things Catholic. It's actually very difficult trying to get away from the prophecies, which sometimes I feel like it's been done, everything's been said. It's now the time, as Francis Hogan wrote to me last year, it's time to now batten down the hatches and pray. Everything's been given, everything's been said, and we're actually just at the point of seeing it unroll more and more right now. But we're going to get into that in a moment. So thanks for everyone for tuning in. I'm just giving it a few minutes as I can see others are coming. Make sure I keep my vocals nice and hydrated. So I'm hoping all goes well when I bring this up on the screen to my left here. I'm going to just give it a shot because it really does wipe out a lot of other things that's going on. So I'm going to just get straight into it now and hopefully it works. Here goes nothing. Make sure the mute button's off. What I'm going to do, as you can see here, I'm going to try and make it full big display because I've done a build on it, and hopefully when I do this it'll come up shown. Excuse me. So the first one I want to show you is what we're covering just now today. We're going to be covering the Pope, with certain prophecies, such as St. Malachi's prophecy, the apparitions of Guadalupe, Fatima, Garabandal, and the prophecy of Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich. The events also coming from some of them, but also Marie-Julie Jehane, Trefontane, Father Malachi Martin quotes, with the clear focus of the times as we see it. All these prophecies around immigration in countries such as England, Italy, France, being mentioned especially, but Israel and Persia, something coming from Marie-Julie Jehane, and why Malachi Martin says Russia and Kiev are part and parcel to the final solution. And then, of course, the times we're in as it's unfolding, 2026 and its significance, the Jubilee year that we've just had, and of course, what I've said before, between 2029 to 2031. Between now and then, we are going to see so much happening, no doubt about it. So, let's begin then. The first thing I want to highlight, let's get some recapping done, but with the help of visuals this time. Our Lady of Guadalupe in 1531. We have 46 stars on the tilma, and from Pope Clement VII, I believe, who was Pope at the time of this, right through to 46 popes, we end up with Pope Benedict being at the end of that list. So 46 stars, 46 popes. And I'm going to show you another slide later where Alessandro, the Italian man, and the spreadsheet, who not only showed that there's 46 stars with 46 popes, but all the constellations of the stars match the names of the popes also. For example, 3-star constellation, there are 3 popes with the same name. 5-star constellation, 5 popes with the same name, etc. Fitting perfectly. Then we have the prophecy of Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich. One prophecy of the many was the time she saw the 2 popes, the churches being closed, tribulation and all the rest of it. But the time of the 2 popes, that was with Benedict, obviously again. But we did get Francis, didn't we? There's your 2 popes. And a great time of confusion, whether it was caused through those in the church himself or just social media. There was definitely something different that was coming about more and more that really left us a lot divided up for sure. But then we get Garabandal in the 1960s. She told the children there would be 4 more popes. One would have a short reign. Now remember, if you read the writings, Conchita did originally say 3, but when questioned on it, she says, well, actually there are 4, I just wasn't counting one because it'll be such a short reign. Those 4 popes, including the 33-day reign of John Paul, landed at Benedict again. So, from 1531 to 1820 with Anne Catherine Emmerich, to the 1960s at Garabandal, all these popes ended with Pope Benedict. And it just coincidentally had to be he was the one to announce his retirement, and then we get Pope Francis. 2 popes alive at the same time. And I believe as times came round in the way of typology, I know there's ones have gone by before about 2 popes in the past, but this is definitely a prophecy for these times, no doubt about it. Now, if that wasn't enough, remember we have the prophecy of St. Malachi. Now, even if you look at Wikipedia, they even say with it being published in 1590, long after his death in 1148, it's not taken seriously, and I don't try to make it seriously, it's just another coincidence. He gave a list of 112 popes, and that 112th pope would have been Petrus Romanus. Now this is where we should really be paying attention for our times, because with all these prophecies seen in the last slide, ending with Benedict, we must think, therefore, the final pope, which is Petrus Romanus, because 111th pope in list chronological order came down to Benedict. So the 112th pope being Petrus Romanus, well, the 112th pope was Francis, wasn't he? But Petrus Romanus, he's supposed to be the pope that nourishes the flock during a great tribulation. That hasn't obviously been Pope Francis, because he's not fulfilled the prophecy of Petrus Romanus. So the time of these two popes, conveniently, and then when Francis died at Easter last year, Easter Monday, significantly at that time, coincidentally, he cannot fulfill that prophecy. However, could it be Pope Leo? A very fitting name to say the least also, because let me explain. With Pope Leo XIV, his real name being Robert Francis Prevost, was introduced by the Cardinal on the Vatican balcony in Latin as Robertum Franciscum Prevost. From that name, you can use the letters highlighted in yellow, jumble them about, and coincidentally, after all these centuries, you will get Petrus Romanus. Now, out of the remaining letters in black within his name, I did go to ChatGPT for quickness to say, what else could we do with those letters in English or in Latin to make up any types of words that might be significant relating to all of this? And the one that gave me a clear word from it, and the only clearest word for sure, was Victor. And then I'll show you the slide in a part, but Victor, then there was one about heart afterwards, core. But Victor, so I see the fact that with Our Lady saying from Fatima that in the end, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. I see Petrus Romanus as the victor for Our Lady, for the Lord. Now, I know since the 100th day of Pope Leo's papacy, things seem to be spiralling a little bit out of control again, just when we thought we had relief, with all the confusion and division beforehand. But people are starting to come on the bandwagon again and influence others' thoughts on social media that maybe he isn't the one that we were hoping for. But do you know what? When you get a pope coming as this timely one does, and you can get Petrus Romanus from his name, I think that's enough to start maybe just keeping an open mind for sure. Now, that brings us back to the main thing, which is Fatima. I've covered this in great detail in the playlist of the Marian apparitions, but the part there in gold I want to focus on, because this is what I've been thinking about since Francis died. If you read there, and we saw in an immense light that is God, something similar to how people appear in a mirror when they pass in front of it, a bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father. They had the impression it was the Holy Father. Like going in front of the mirror. Like, what's the other word for mirror? Like, what's the mirror about? Well, the one thing Our Lady's title is Mirror of Justice. And I want to hold on to that and come back to it. But later on in the message, with all the martyrdoms happening in the city half in ruins, the laity up to the hierarchy of the church were all being killed in the city half in ruins with the soldiers, only then for the Pope to be killed as well. And they made it clear it was the Holy Father that was being killed later. So they had the impression that it was the Holy Father. Interesting. Now, the reason I say that is I'll come to it, because I think this might have been something to do with the time of the two popes, now with Francis passing, and the confusion we've had, and the fact also that chronological number, he has not fulfilled Petrus Romanus's prophecy. However, we get Petrus Romanus now with Leo's name. So I think there's something going on about the time of two popes there. And we already had that prophecy before Fatima with Anne Catherine Emmerich almost 100 years before, in 1820. And before Fatima also, as we've covered in great detail before, even with Xavier Aralo on the channel many times, the great mystic and saintly woman Marie-Julie Jahenny, she speaks about how the reign of an English queen at the same time would then erupt into the new sovereign on the throne of England, who we know as King Charles, witnessing the tensions between England, Israel, and Persia. We've been seeing this since he became king, and right now, after 2 years of rockets back and forth between Israel and Iran, and the strikes America carried out secretly last year, this very moment, Abraham Lincoln and all the other armada from America is off the coast of Iran, ready to strike if a deal is not made. And just over an hour ago, I saw a Fox News post that an Iranian drone was on its way to the USS Abraham Lincoln and it was shot down by them. So tensions are going to be more and more there, which again is going to spark a great rise with Islam, because what we're seeing in England, France, Italy, Germany, Ireland, this mass Muslim immigration, which is completely out of control now and saturated to the point where that ain't changing anytime soon. This is all the stage being set, has been for the last several years, but we're really seeing it oozing out now. It's saturated, overfilling. In the years 80 to 83, well, if you add them on to the year she died, which was Xavier's theory, and it backs everything up as I can concur, that would come to 2021 to 2024. The Queen died, all this immigration's been getting underway, the tension between the nations has been rising all the more. It was within the time of the two popes as well. But remember the other thing regarding Russia and Kiev. This is where hope also comes in, because Father Malachi Martin, who knew the third secret of Fatima, spoke about how salvation is to come from the east. That's Russia. That's Arab nations. That's all these Muslim immigrants and other immigrants coming in from the east and elsewhere. But how's that? Well, this is where God makes it good, which we'll get to. But he basically says, and this interview is available on YouTube, he says Russia and Kiev are involved in the final solution. They are part and parcel of the final solution, and it's God's choice. Salvation is to come from the east for us all, and that was in 1997. So Russia and Kiev were in it, again, time of the two popes and time of everything else. But then, just to quickly highlight, I've done great depth into Trefontani a couple of years ago. The videos are available. But I was told to myself privately, although I was never sworn to secrecy or anything, and I've covered this again already, but before his death in 2001, the visionary Bruno Cannocchiolo from Trefontani in Rome wrote a line in his diary from context of everything else he was writing, and that little line, the pun, the joke, was asked to be removed by the church, and they did so under obedience. But basically it was right, you'll know by 2026 if you're still around. So here we are, 2026, and look how it's kicked off. Now, I look at Pope Leo XIII and Pope Leo XIV as the two ends holding up all the books in the middle, the bookends. Because remember, again, coincidentally, not just by their names, but Leo XIII had the mystical experience where God gave Satan the time and the power to test the church and humanity. 75 to 100 years, but it would be shortly into the 20th century that it would begin. Well, shortly into the 20th century, that's where Fatima kicked off. But coincidentally, as we know, October 13th, 1884 was that date of that experience. But 33 years later, on October 13th, 1917, Fatima miracle. And then October 13th again, 1973, Akita prophecy, the division in the church, chastisement. So now we come to Leo XIV, and here's where everything fits in between now, even though it's been given beforehand. All these stuff that I highlighted at the start is all fitting now under this papacy, most of it coming with the two popes. And again, Guadalupe, with those 46 stars, we get the 46 popes, and that ended with Benedict. Garabandal in the 1960s says 4 more popes after John the 23rd. That was Benedict. St. Malachi's list of popes gave 112. Benedict is the 111th, and then the last one was Petrus Romanus. But that is not Francis. He is one of the 2 popes. Again, Benedict is mixed in with that, but he cannot be Petrus Romanus because he has died at the Jubilee year at Easter of all times. And then the new Pope, Pope Leo the 14th, his name gives us Petrus Romanus, as already explained. And that, my dear friends, is what I wanted to recap for you. So let me know your thoughts on that. I hope I made sure I wasn't in mute before because I didn't see any of the screen there. I just saw the slideshow on the other one. So hopefully I've answered it for you there, Scott Ward. 80 to 83 years after Israel became a nation again. Well, remember she died in 1941 and Israel wasn't declared a nation until 7 years later in 1948, I believe. So 80 to 83, if you add those years respectfully on to the year she died in 1941, you get 2021 to 2024. And that's where all this stuff happened, including the Queen dying, the 2 popes, etc. So there's a good bit there with that. Now, while I'm getting my screen set up, just get your comments in. I'll try and have a good look at them. But again, I wanted to highlight more coincidences. Just coincidences. All this coincidental, isn't it? It's just coincidences. This is why God gives us discernment. It's one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. Discernment. Now, the other thing, it's a coincidence. Someone shared this with me, and I don't take much to do with it, to be honest with you. I'm not in-depth studying St. Malachi's list whatsoever, but there's a couple of links. I'll leave them in the description box after the live feed, if I can remember. So those who are watching it back in a day or two, you can see it in the links, hopefully. But if I go back to this one that was shared, again, the last pontificate, this person basically just writes up near the top here. I don't think I can. Yeah, I can. The prophecy of the popes written by St. Malachi of Armagh gives short descriptions to the 113 popes beginning with Celestine. So they're including it with Celestine there. It's a bit, I think, different for the other one I'm looking at. As prophecy predicts, there are 2 more popes after Benedict the 16th. So he's actually calling out 2 more after Benedict. That was interesting. The 73rd motto, Axel in the midst of a sign, can be interpreted as the exact middle of the reign of all the popes in the prophecy. Then, the end of the papacy of the last pope will fall on Thursday, March 18th, 2032. Now, you need to read it all for yourself because he goes into quite a bit of numbering in the list and how he goes through about it and all the rest of it, with dates and everything else. But the thing that stood out for me was March 18th, 2032. Now, if this guy is right, whoever wrote this, why is March 18th significant? March 18th is the day she appears to Mariana in Medjugorje. Mariana always says March 18th is going to be a significant date in the future. Now, I haven't checked it because I've just brought it up, but when I see Thursday, I need to check those dates to see if that coincides with like the Thursday that could fit in with the Garabandal prophecies. I know most people bring it to April, even though we're given a few months. But March 18th is significant, I believe. In 2032, there's talk that if the calendars are off by a year or so, then 2032 again would make sense of that. That was the main thing I just wanted to bring up. But with Petrus Romanus, as it shows here, the glory of the olive was 111. Benedict was 111th Pope since that list was given. And the glory of the olive being the olive branch for the Benedictine orders. But then we'll get the final persecution of the church. Peter the Roman, 112th Pope, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations, and when these things are finished, The city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end. That's the end of an era, not the end of the world. The end of an era, because we're going into the new era of peace, as promised at Fatima. So when you read Marie-Julie Jahenny, when you read Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich, when you read the others pre-Fatima, you will see, when you look at the Fatima image, reading those sources, it's Fatima. When you read the one I've just read there, I mean, that if that's the city of 7 hills being destroyed under Petrus Romanus, is that not what we see in the image of Fatima? The city half in ruins, everyone being killed, including the Pope. It's all Fatima imagery. The messages of Bruno repeatedly speak about Muslims killing people all over different places in Rome, different dreams, but it's always the same theme. And then Russia, Islam, Russia, repeatedly, from Trefontane to Blessed Elena Elio to others all over it. And that's what we're seeing with the stage being set now. So we are waiting to see that final tribulation, but you can sense the simmerings starting to boil now, where we're at. I wanted to have more things up to show you on screen, but I can do that another time. But I saw an article pop up a couple of weeks ago. It was over in Ireland. I mean, Ireland's gone haywire with the government over there. It's really trying to do everything it can to forget its Catholic history and its roots. And from all the mosques being built to the migration being out of control as it is everywhere else. But they're actually looking at ways to take back church lands and property. So they're going to look at excuses for that right now. One of it being obviously for the church bankruptcy with all the scandals going on is another way of paying for retribution. But if there's still a big predicted crash that's going to come, and we've already seen what's been happening the past week with silver and gold going down dramatically, as well as a lot of crypto and things, there's still something in the sense that that's coming, especially if war keeps going on. But it'd be another reason for governments to take back lands and church buildings and things, because right now, with the way churches have been going, a lot of them have been getting sold off over the years. So we are seeing the brick and mortar coming under more attack and threatening to be under attack by governments ready to take it off in places such as Ireland. They're already getting renovated and some taken over as mosques in England, which I've seen for myself. And yeah, you're just going to wait and see until the point where we're outbred and overran with what's happening with the demographics of the European nations. Now, that's not going to be an entirely bad thing, because for all the bad stuff that's been influenced by the Dark One, with all our world leaders and globalists, etc., we see that. But God is God. How does He bring the good out of that? Well, if salvation is to come from the East, it's already coming. But Mark, the prophecies were going to be so much bloodshed, so much war. Revolutions was a clear word. Who's going to cause the revolutions? Well, it's going to be Islam, Russia. We know this. But you imagine these zealous Muslims for their faith who'll end up having a Damascus experience, just like Bruno had at Trefontane, just like St. Paul did on the way to Damascus. That blinding light, that moment of the great illumination of conscience is given at Garabandal and other places. All your Muslims will see that. All your Jews will see that. All your Christians, Catholics, atheists, every human being on the planet at exactly the same time will see it. And there'll be mass conversions, followed on by the permanent signs, the miracle and the permanent signs. People will be coming back. Like, I'm thinking 90% of humanity will be coming back into the church, and they'll be strict, they'll be disciplined, they'll be full of missionary zeal for the gospel. That's why she appeared in Fatima. Know your history of Europe. after the first Islamic invasion, and the story behind the love story with the lady Fatima and the soldier and why it was created there for it. Read up on it. This is why Fulton Sheen also noticed why Fatima, because Fatima is Muhammad's beloved daughter. And the only woman that gets a higher place in the whole Quran other than Fatima is Miriam, the mother of Jesus. So some believe, even if you look back to Guadalupe image with the crescent moon under our feet, why not the full moon? So there's stuff in there with the symbolisms going back as far as Guadalupe through Knock, which are both apocalyptic imagery, yet we're centuries later to where we've arrived now, because I believe the last 500 years has been the influence and build up of the spirit of Antichrist, and now in these last several years we're going to see the crescendo of good versus evil, of the human great reset influenced by the devil against the great divine reset that our Blessed Mother, with the grace of God and His divine mandate, is going to be counteracting it. And yeah, so it's never about fear. Yeah, hard times are in, but this is where the hope comes, because the stage is set for mass conversion. Hopefully we'll get through it, but if we don't, and we're martyred for our faith, or whatever happens, that's why these same sources are always the ones praying. They're always fasting. They're giving messages of prayer and fasting and holy life. We have absolutely everything in abundance, from the sources, the knowledge, and the chance to be living like saints. And you think of the apostles, or these greatest saints or martyrs and mystics of the church that have been here for the last 2,000 years, came and went. If they had to pick a time to come back, where and when do you think it would be? It would be now. It would be now, because the harvest is ripe and we need the labourers. Now, speaking of which, this is why the Jubilee year of 2025 has been actually very promising. I'm speaking to random people on my job, people I meet, and even a Jehovah's Witness was saying it. Remember last year at Easter, I was going to the English Seminary in Rome for the Easter Triduum while I was over in Rome on pilgrimage for a good 10 days and part of my birthday. All the government released the data, astounded how many conversions and baptisms and attendance back to the Catholic Church in England. And Gen Z, young men especially, were the biggest group going back into the church. And for the first time in 500 years nearly since the Reformation, there are now more Catholics going to church than Anglicans. And then you see it in France, South Korea, Italy. All these different countries are all reporting the same thing. And I was even speaking to a lady who was a Jehovah's Witness 2 weeks ago. She says, yeah, young people are just walking in off the street and inquiring. You're hearing it everywhere. And then on a newspaper article it popped up, record-breaking Bible sales. And it turned out apparently there have been more Bible sales last year than any other time since records began. And the Bible's always been the most biggest selling book year after year for decades and decades. But last year it was record breaking. What does that tell you, folks? The seeds of the new era have been getting planted for a long time, but now they're starting to bud. They're starting to grow through the soil, and this is the new era coming up, a new creation coming in the generation. And all of us who are still alive, we're going to be seeing it coming. So it's exciting for it. Hard times are coming, but the greater times are going to be there as well. And this is where it comes back to living the messages, living the gospel, like the always said. I did say I would bring up a couple of things before I forget, just to kind of go back over it all. If I take you back to this screen, Alessandro Massano must have been nearly a year and a half to 2 years ago now. Time just flies. I just can't always keep up with it. So from all the stars on the Telma, and you know NASA have studied this greatly, and all the stuff with the Aztecs as well. You could keep a week's worth of lectures going on the Telma. It's amazing. But the one thing we never heard of before is he's discovered of those 46 stars around the Telma, there are constellations. Obviously, we've got Scorpius, Crux, Canis Minor, Taurus, and again, all where they should be lined up like they were in the universe, as NASA has confirmed. But out of those 46 in total, and it is in Italian obviously, so the Scorpius has 7 stars, but there were 7 popes with Pope Clement, and Pope Clement was one of the ones at the time of the Telma. The Centaurus constellation has 5 stars. There were 5 Pope Innocents. So the Crux constellation has 4 stars. There were 4 popes of Benedict since 1531. And yeah, it's the same with the others. So 1 pope to 1 star constellation. And then Pope Urban, there were 2 Urbans, and there were 2 stars of the Lupus. So you see how it matches perfectly. It's not just 46 stars, 46 popes. The constellations matches the names perfectly. Absolutely amazing. You cannot make that up. That's just another coincidence, isn't it? So how many coincidences is that? Have we been counting? Anyone counting? I'm going to be looking at your comments in a moment. You can let me know. I'm going to see. I had other things up. Yeah, I look back into my old slides with Trefontani. I have to admit, Trefontani is one of my new favourites. I've never known Our Lady to be so blunt. But I tell you what, when you look at a lot of what Bruno wrote, he doesn't hold back about what he's been dreaming of, what he was told. Even that first apparition on about those coming from the east. And it just backs up everything from Marie Julie Jehane to Blessed Elena Elio and others when they speak about it. Let me see if I can find it here. A lot about the lukewarm clergy. So yeah, let's see if I get a screen back. I won't go through them all. I've done a full video on this. So Islam in Russia. April 12th, 1947. Coincidentally, that being the first apparition that she appears to him as he's planning to kill the Pope. April 12th, 2020 was Anne Catherine Emmerich speaking about a lot of stuff in the church. And then the May onwards it keeps going, but it was the time of 2 popes. So that's one thing I can link. April 12th is Trefontani and also Anne Catherine Emmerich prophecy. But from the east a strong people, but far away from God, will unleash a tremendous attack and will break the most holy and sacred of things when it will be allowed them to do so. This is where God's holding back the grace and allowing this to happen. Who's going to be doing this? Strong people from the east. Who's going to be attacking all the sacred things? Well, I don't see that being the Russians as such, because unless something changes with leadership and communism's back with them anytime soon, because they are on a U-turn for quite some time now in regards to Christian Orthodox, at least with the Orthodox it's still Christianity, not Soviet communism. But here's July 21st. I dreamt that Muslims surrounded the churches and closed the doors of believers inside in prayer, and were throwing gas and starting fires from the roofs. He had many dreams like that. Another, a punishment will suddenly come from the east. They will receive the power to be able to subjugate those whom they call infidels. So again, Russians don't call us infidels. The Chinese don't call us infidels. Who calls us infidels? This will happen very soon, and many false prophets shall rise and seduce many. So yeah, there's more and more that goes on about it, but I think yeah, Israeli and Arabs, that's convenient for now. They're coming to an agreement, but it will always be a forced agreement and will always be a powder keg with fire nearby. One will ignite and blow up everything and ruin the whole world with all living things. That's definitely what's brewing up in Iran right now with the nuclear talks. And this is where it keeps going. Do you know also in the last month or so, have you noticed how President Putin's speaking now? He said repeatedly that they never wanted war with Europe. To think of such a thing and what they spend in defence with their GDP to everything else, he says it's stupid to even suggest it. This is what he would say. He's been saying it repeatedly. They've never wanted war. But if you look back to just a few weeks ago, again he says, we don't want war with Europe. We never did. And this isn't war with Ukraine. It's precision. It's a military precision. It's a task that they're doing precise. So like, it's exactly what is expected rather than full out war. And he's, in a lot of ways, he's holding back of what's getting forced upon him to attack Europe. Is it the NATO borders have been coming over for decades, more and more to Russia. They're keeping this proxy war going with the Ukraine because it suits the West to keep it that way. And again, they had to go into it. I see that, but it's precise planning like he's doing for whatever reasons. It's not full out war according to him, but he's always said since that conflict began, they're not looking for war with Europe. They're trying to get us back to the negotiating table, and this is what they've been forced into. But now he's saying, yeah, we don't want war. We've never wanted war. But we are ready to go to war. We are ready. My only concern is there'll be no one left to discuss peace with. That's what more or less he says. So his rhetoric's changed. They're ready. And I think whatever's going to kick it off, Marie-Julie Jahenny says the spark would be France. But I don't know if it's Russia that's going to spark it or if it's revolutions of Islam's going to spark it, but something's going to coincide at the same time with two. And we always had the sense that NATO was going to crumble, even the EU itself. But with NATO having America backing it up also, and that being the biggest part, we always had the sense, and again, if you see how Xavier Aral interprets the prophecies with Marie-Julie Jahenny, with the Anglo-Saxon side, including America, America's not coming to NATO's help if this war breaks out with Russia, even regarding the legalities of Article 5. But if there was ever a clear sign of NATO ready to fall apart and how much America doesn't want to be part of it, look what's happened since the new year with Greenland. Trump wants Greenland for American interests and security above all, and the talk of taking it the easy way or the hard way, the military and all the rest of it. A lot of diplomatic work's been happening since then till now, but within 72 hours of the brand new year 2026, where we're told you'll know by 2026 if you're still around, from Bruno, the year finally arrives, and within 72 hours of the new year, and 72 hours before the closing of the holy doors, bringing the Jubilee to an end on January 6th, we had all this kicking off with Venezuela, and then that erupted all the prophecies of servant of God, Maria Esperanza, who you'll see I've done a video on a couple of times, including a great interview with Ted Flynn, a great author of the Garabandal book, Thunder of Justice, and many others, and who met Maria Esperanza 5 times, so make sure you check that one out too. But it's not a coincidence why Iran's kicked off at the same time and what's going on there, because this is it sparking now, and we're right at the beginning of this prophetic year. And remember, as I highlighted last year as well, October 13th again, 200-day countdown from October 13th brings us to May 1st. Now, we thought with nothing happening by January 6th, then, right, it couldn't be this Jubilee year. What am I talking about? Remember I covered last year after speaking with Michael at the Garabandal Centre in Garabandal, John Bosco's prophecy about the 200-day march to the Rainbow of Peace in the month of flowers with 2 full moons. Well, this May coming has 2 full moons. And there's more into the prophecy you'll need to check out. But 200 days, coincidentally, began the countdown on October 13th, 2025, the Jubilee year, because he ties this in with the Jubilee year that Bruno spoke about in the diary, where he wrote down they were all, and it was a dream, and they were all at the Vatican awaiting to get their Jubilee indulgences. So it's a Jubilee year. And then the Muslims attacked and all the rest of it, like he's had many dreams written down like this before. But the Jubilee year, this was July 2025, this Jubilee year we've just had, and we were waiting till January the 6th to see if anything kicked off like Bruno wrote about. Plus the backing up of the 2 full moons which would come in May 2026, this prophetic year as well. But remember, although the holy doors are closed, they gave us the Jubilee year of St. Francis, so it's still open. We're in a Jubilee year still. A new Jubilee year, one after another. Who saw that coming? So, yeah, let's see what happens between now and May in terms of, I mean, how many months is this naval fleet going to be staying offshore over near Iran? How long is this stuff going to go on with Russia and Kiev? Part and parcel to the final solution. How many more mass immigrants, predominantly Muslim males, coming into all our countries in Europe here? How much more? How many hotels are left? How many house of multiple occupants are left? HMOs, as they're called. It's out of control. And and sometimes I've actually wondered at the idea if I ever had to do interviews or speak to people like Nigel Farage or Tommy Robinson. If you don't know who they are outside of the UK, Google them up. Now, there's Nigel Farage is obviously trying to take on the Trump idea here in the UK. Whether he'll do it or not, it's another thing. Then Tommy Robinson's always been seen as the racist thug and all this. But when after watching him and Jordan Peterson a year ago, I think a lot of people started to listen more. One, Jordan Peterson doesn't take any nonsense. He wouldn't suffer fools gladly. And he really had a good chat with him, and you could see Tommy being emotional and opening up. And when he speaks a lot. Now, it's very divisive and all that, but I just thought, if I spoke to Nigel Farage, what would I say? If I spoke to Tommy Robinson, who's sounding the alarm and all this immigration and the threat of Islam, what would I say to him? If I had to speak to President Trump or JD Vance, what would I say to them? And if I had the stomach and the time and patience and self-control to speak to Keir Starmer, what would I say to him? I would say exactly the same thing to all of them, as more or less I've been given in these videos. Do you realise what's happening and why it's happening? See, Tommy and Nigel, and they'll sound the alarm, or Kate Hopkins, they're getting in the act. They're sounding the alarm, but they're not understanding why, and they're not understanding the times we're in. And I've recently saw one at Christmas where Tommy's embraced Christianity. If it's going to be for geopolitics to bring him up more to be up there with the likes of the Charlie Kirk idea or the Candace Owens of the UK, if it's going to do something that's going to bring him the money and the recognition and the movement and whatever is personally from himself, then it doesn't fit totally with what it is to be Christian and in the faith. But I can understand through the mess and the unpleasantness that how God could still use that to bring about the good. But Tommy needs to realise, Nigel, President Trump, everyone, all of us, including me, we need to realise and remember that every single human being on the planet, regardless of their skin colour, the country they're born in, the religion, or anything else. Each and every one of us are children of God, made in His image and likeness. And soon enough, they will all be Catholic when the plans of Our Lady roll out. That is how the salvation is coming from the East. It's the blood of the martyrs that will bring the new era, the new seeds of the church. And our brothers and sisters in countries such as Nigeria, where the Western media are not talking about it, suffering terribly at the hands of Islamic terrorists and the martyrdoms of Christians throughout Nigeria. It's just their blood is paying for this right now, as well as people around the world as well. But we won't be in the comfort of our own homes watching this on the news or social media, on our phones for much longer. It's going to be in our streets. It's going to be in our right in our face. We're going to be in it. But that's where the purple scapula comes in for the house. Blessed statues, blessed candles, but above all, living the gospel, living your faith, embracing it with everything you have. And what I've done this past year, and part of me, this is what I was going to maybe say at the beginning, maybe as next chapter to finish off. I've actually signed up now for the last few months to do an online course. It's a Catholic course. Many of me have heard of it. It's the Encounter Ministry, coming from America. It's just like I can lose myself in meditation, especially with the Rosary Mysteries. I can lose myself in silence. I loved it when I went to the Carthusians years ago. You get to a depth of silence. It's no way of experience to explain it other than through experience. But when it comes to the exterior, when it comes to those gifts, of prophecy, of miracles, of healing. I mean, even St. Paul writes in the Bible that he thrives us all to have that gift of prophecy. So these are the ones where it's like it's seen as too charismatic renewal. And I was like, well, what is the church's official teaching on it? What does the church say? And that's why I'm on this course, to get that solid Catholic teaching and affirmation using the Bible from the Catholic point, catechesis, church doctors, the saints, and bringing it all together in a really good module, linear way with videos and class and practice and stuff. So that's what I've been doing. I've also been asked to be the national coordinator for the Flame of Love UK. And again, last year, I was invited to give a talk at the conference for the Flame of Love. I've never read into the diary of Elizabeth Kinderman, the Flame of Love diary. I've never went to the Cenacles or anything. But when I was asked, my name was circulated somehow, and when I was asked, I basically discerned like all the steps that was providentially given 4 years ago, from me to move from Scotland to the West Midlands to my location where I live. It's actually around, it's like a 5 minute walk to this religious community of nuns. And it was that community that Elizabeth Kinderman wrote in her own diary decades ago, who would spread the flame of love in England and elsewhere. And that's another coincidence. But she writes about a great jolt coming to the world. And when you read about it, it's the warning, the illumination of conscience. And that unity prayer, the unity prayer at the end, when I read that unity prayer, I just see that as how we'll be living in heaven, how we'll be living in the divine will, how we'll be living in the new era of peace that was promised. So, how can I say no to Mama Mary when there's 7 or 8 factors that was completely God's providence, through coincidences of people, places, timing, all working out for location, where I was living, my job, everything to lead me to the vocation of marriage. And now settled, I get asked to take on this role, and I'm next to the prophetic community who was mentioned in the diary. That ain't a coincidence. That's another God incidence. They've all been God incidences, just to be clear. But yeah, so I'm going to be looking in a little bit more of the flame of love, obviously, to learn it for myself, but something to obviously spread devotion on. Is anyone else involved in the flame of love or read it before? That's really why everything's heading to where it's going. And I asked Barry this, Barry Malley, who's been on the channel a couple of times, even the one with Xavier and I. The three of us had a good laugh a few months ago. And Barry's just as clued up, if not more, than me and Xavier regarding all this stuff where we're at in times with the prophecies. And I asked him, why, out of everything of your knowledge, why did you set up and focus on the Flame of Love prayer group that you've got now? He says, because I see how everything goes towards that. I'm like, all right, okay. I've got some reading to do. So yeah, don't knock it, folks. Don't knock it till you try it. Yeah, so the Encounter Ministry and Flame of Love are the two new things. And I have to be honest, I'd love to be doing more live stuff because I enjoy the interaction, I enjoy the company, I enjoy seeing something when I've got it there and people are obviously getting from it. And but I do think in the last couple of years, I think the symptoms are there of ADHD that's becoming a bit more clear. I can go 1,000% focused and burn out, or I can be overwhelmed and fed up and curl up and don't do nothing for a while, which obviously impacts the YouTube appearances. And I do see other channels who got in on the game during COVID and skyrocketed, but they were like 6 years behind me when I set up the channel, and that's what I wanted to do, but I never get round to doing it because of growing here, there, and everywhere with different content, as well as switching off and on, like I was saying, and not knowing half the stuff that I could use with computing and tech. But the Fatima, the Garabandal, the Medjugorje, the Prophecies, they were always there when I set up the channel in 2014, but it just wasn't for it. So I have noticed the channel being more calmer than the last 18 months where it was skyrocketing. I got on at the tail end of COVID, I think, when finally getting my act together. But keep me in your prayers with all that, because again, you don't know if it's spiritual attack, you don't know if it's just ADHD, you don't know if there's something else going on. But I'm at the Lord's disposal, and I always say I don't give him my ability, I just give him my availability. He's the one that's able to do everything, not me. It's his strength and grace, not mine. And my conscience could never let me run away with any other reason other than try to make this for him and get those messages out. But I don't want it just to be a prophecy channel. I want it to be all things Catholic. We've got a beautiful faith, a beautiful church, and we could be studying it and learning for all our lives and we still won't get round it all. Even the great angelic doctor, St. Thomas Aquinas, after the experience of whatever he saw in the heavens, he stopped writing. He never put pen to paper again, because what he saw and what he was writing, he says it was like straw compared to what he saw. So we get that interior growth in that way of mysticism through what's interior inside us. And that's why the praying and the fasting and the spiritual reading and self-sacrifice and focusing on the gifts of the Holy Spirit we get for confirmation. People, I think, find them boring. No one wants to go on about wisdom and fortitude and understanding when we can have healings and miracles and all sorts and prophecy. But it's the interior that St. Thomas Aquinas says is more important, because it's the interior that's going to make us in that state of heaven. And remember, the Catechism says heaven is not a place of destination, it's a state of being. And the only thing that can make our state of being more heavenly is allowing that grace to flow, interiorize our life into God. And that's a day by day, hour by hour thing, isn't it? How we live. Right, let's grab a couple of messages here to unwind and switch off. I'm just marking a few. And I'm just randomly scrolling, and then I'll grab them. Who have we got? Good, a lot of good comments here, folks. Thanks very much. I'll see a few political ones then. We've got some UK residents with us. Right, I've got a few here, folks. Just keep them coming in. This will be your last chance to say or ask anything. Hopefully I can answer for you. Right, that's a good one there. I thought that might have been Barry there. Right, the reason I'm saying that, Dennis Shea. Benedict was the last pope. There will be no Petrus Romanus except the first Pope Peter. The institutional church will go into deception. Now, you've brought up the Catechism 675. I believe I had that on one of my slides that I've covered in the past a couple of times. I just need to figure out where it is. Because I used to, here we go, 675 is it? Yep. So let me get this up on the side here, and we'll open that up for you. For those who are wondering, 675. Right, let's get you down. Okay, next screen. So Dennis has brought this one up about Catechism 675. Before Christ's second coming, the church must pass through a final trial that will shake the faith of many believers. So we have got a final trial coming. The persecution that accompanies her pilgrimage on earth will unveil the mystery of iniquity in the form of a religious deception, offering men an apparent solution to their problems at the price of apostasy from the truth. The supreme religious deception is that of the Antichrist, a pseudo-messianism by which man glorifies himself in place of God and of his Messiah come in the flesh. Now, there's actually, before I forget, one of the things Bruno and Trefontani wrote down is how he woke up in a tremble and shivering and prayed and hoped what he just seen wouldn't come true, how the Pope wouldn't place himself as God and deny all the truth of faith. There's something that is going to happen at the top, and that's where the apostasy begins, according to Cardinal Luigi, is it Chiappi? Or Pacelli? Chiappi? Who read The Third Secret of Fatima, speaking about that. So we know, it's in the Catechism, you're right what you're saying there, Dennis. It's definitely going to be a final persecution in that. But that final tribulation, it's the final tribulation it's mentioned with Petrus Romanus, but you're saying that would be Peter, the first pope. Now, my friend Barry speaks about that, but I've never had enough time to actually understand where he's coming from with it. And I doubt we'll have time for you to type more up because we've hit the hour mark. But Peter was martyred. He's dead. He's in heaven. Of the two witnesses that are supposed to come back from the Bible, and preach it against the Antichrist before they're finally slain, some will say it's Enoch and Elijah, because they never died. They were assumed, so to say. But I don't see in that regard, first of all, at the top of my head, why it would be the first Pope Peter to come back as Peter the Roman. Is that what you mean? Is like he's coming back? That's why I need to speak to Barry about it. If there were no more popes, but the church is it's the same church since, let's take it to Vatican II if you want to keep that divide of pre and post Vatican II. John Paul II, Benedict XVI, they were elected the same way Leo the 14th was. Now, some will argue about Francis, but let's include him anyway. But even with Leo, there's no doubt, like, there was no retired Francis or that. Even if he wasn't true, you take him away after these years, it would be a continuation from Benedict to Leo the 14th. So he's elected the same way as Benedict was, who was elected the same way as John Paul II was after the 1960s. So I don't see how it could be illegitimate. But when you have his name given as Petrus Romanus, as I keep saying, is it not just a coincidence? Because if God spares Pope Leo the 14th to live another 20 years, which would take him just beyond Francis's age of death at 89, he's just turned 70, I believe, hasn't he, Pope Leo? So let's say another 19 years to make the same age as Francis. He's fit, he's healthy, he keeps himself healthy and well. There doesn't look any sign of anything happening. So let's even say God spares him 10 years. I believe that's enough time for him to be not just Petrus Romanus by name, jumbled up, but also the Pope to witness the mass revolutions, the churches being attacked, the tribulation that's coming through all that. Russia and Kiev ain't going to be going on for another 10 years with the build-up and everything that's happening right now. The threat of NATO falling apart over Greenland. 15 years, the House of Lords have already said, one peer said months ago, that if the trajectory keeps going with the demographics in England right now, white British people will be the natives within 15 years, the minority. That's still within his lifetime if God grants him the 15 to 20 years. So I do believe he might be that Pope, not just by name, but fitting for the times, just by the years that could be left. But maybe it does seem to be echoing a few things with Francis, and I know it's got a lot of trads and social media concerned again and kicking off where they left off with Francis. Time will need to wait and see. But with Francis dying and the time of the two popes and confusions and all this, I just keep going back to Fatima, how they had the impression it was the Holy Father, like going in front of a mirror, a reflection. And I think the mirror as well, Our Lady, the mirror of justice. What did Jesus say in the Divine Mercy? This is my time where I come as the merciful Saviour before that day of the just judge. Justice. And the 100th anniversary of the Divine Mercy is 2031. It's also the 50th anniversary of Medjugorje. It's also the 500th anniversary of Guadalupe. Huatli Supe, the woman who crushes the serpent, as Dr. Peter Howard tells us. So it's very apocalyptic. It's very much the final battle as well of Christ v. the Antichrist, which is over marriage and family. Your brick and mortar churches are definitely going to be plundered, attacked, and destroyed. But this is where it goes back to the divine reset as it was at the beginning with the 12. They were nomads. They were going out there, living in God's providence, completely at His disposal and mercy to be looked after. And the church gathered in unity for the same bread, for the same praise and worship. And I think your trads are in for a shock when they need to get back to a missionary apostolic way of church. So yeah, there's a bit of balance on both sides with that one. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I'd like to know more, because you're not the only one to say that about Peter the Roman, where that's coming from. So Jesus and Mary inseparable. 46 stars and 46 popes. Does that mean Frankenstein and Leo? I think it means Francis and Leo don't count. Well, hopefully I've kind of answered it in a way with that last one. The question might be with Francis just what it says with the Fatima thing. I know people, even intellectual people like professors of theology at pontifical unis to others, were trying everything they could intellectually, logically, to actually say the Benedict's retirement wasn't valid, which means Francis's pontificate wasn't valid. But they're arguing against Pope Benedict as well, the Mozart of theology himself, who I'm sure knew what he was doing when he did it. And no, I would say, again, it's not from a personal point. I'm just working with what's been put in front of us so far tonight. There is a question around Francis, maybe, in terms of what heaven was maybe trying to say through these prophecies and that vision of Fatima. But I don't see any reason why you couldn't say Leo is a legitimate pope, for sure. And like, he fits the. I mean, Francis should have been 112, but 112 was Petrus Romanus. Francis didn't fulfill that. So there's an apparent prophecy given years ago of Saint Francis saying how one in the future would be elected with his name, but he wouldn't be canonically elected. So. But I think Fatima does something. But Petrus Romanus just happens to fall after that confusion time of that split divisive papacy. We get a Petrus Romanus in the name of Robertum Franciscum Prevost, who so happens to choose Leo, where it all began with Leo the 13th, and look all in between. So I think this is the final battle with the Antichrist in the next 7 years, and he'll be the Pope if God spares him. There's no reason, unless he catches a bad illness or dies in other ways, there's no reason why in the next 7 to 10 years we won't be seeing a lot of these prophecies unfold during his papacy. We've got here the Irene 3-1. The aurora borealis at night all over the world is definitely a sign. In Fatima, Our Lady says it would be a sign of World War II. So now it's a sign of another war, I think. Very much could be the case because, again, a church that's not into the supernatural isn't listening with what the divine creator's placed over us to work it out. And Our Lady did say there'd be a strange light in the sky and it'll be a sign that the world's about to be punished. That very night, when it occurred, when Lucia knew from her window that was the light Our Lady was speaking about, was the aurora borealis all over Europe and other parts of the world. So yeah, when I see stuff like that, it does stay in the back of my mind for sure. June Thompson, hi Mark, any word of Our Lady coming yet to Garabandal? I don't think there's any plans for her to appear back there since the 1960s. But I would highly recommend you go. It's a wonderful place to be. You'll see the visionary Jacinta there sometimes. She comes over at certain times. I met her last year, videos on the channel. I don't think Conchita's been back in a while. But she's in her late 70s. She's got the one thing left to do, which is to give us 8 days' notice to the great miracle. Now, that miracle comes after the warning, remember. But you know what? I think those ones will know in time through Medjugorje. I do. I think that's part of the first and second secret. It would be easy to assume so. Right, the politics one. Double joy. Rupert Lowe rather than Nigel Farage. Yeah, I'm not too sure about Nigel. Rupert Lowe seems to be doing a bit more. Nigel's going to the World Economic Forum saying he's ambitious too much, I think. Don't trust him enough to say what he says. Next one from Deirdre Williams. Father Blunt was a great proponent of the flame of love. I miss him so much. Have no idea why they sort of silenced him. I think he was just becoming very popular and it was on all these channels. And the thing is with YouTube now, it's becoming a junkyard with AI faceless videos. And there's other channels out there. You have to watch the name of the channel, not just the video. Because my videos are popping up in different channels and it's all copyright. They shouldn't be doing it. They're stealing it. They're not writing to me or asking for it. And I know Father Chad Ripperger, he's got a load of that happening. He's trying to address it and deal with it as well. When I interviewed Father Ripperger's assistant over a year ago, Kyle Clement, he says they were looking into it with legal ways and that because it's just out of control now with all these other channels popping up. It looks as if they're interviewing them and they're not, or there's faceless ones just using his videos and repopulating them all the time because people are looking to make money easy by doing that. So be careful of the sources. Don't be watching any videos that's not from my own channel, and kind of report them if you can. Joe Livingston, great to see you here, brother. God bless you. Hope you're doing well. Double joy again. Tommy Robinson, also known as Stephen, is half Irish yet is a dispensationalist. He is a lost soul. Katie Hopkins lives in an immoral lifestyle and fields with affairs. She's funny and brave though. She's an absolute hoot. She's funny. I thought I heard once like Tommy Robinson was, yeah, I remember him saying about half Irish. I wasn't sure if he says he might have been a lapsed Catholic or Christian or something like that. But yeah, but they are the ones that are brave enough to sound the alarm to what's happening in the country, where others are either too afraid or indifferent would be the word. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to cause offence. You know, the last 30 years of PC culture being force fed onto us has had such an effect on so many people. But I'm at the point where I'm fed up. So if you don't like it, tough. Because I'm offended every day I put the TV on. I'm offended every day at work when I hear the Lord's name being used as a curse word. I'm offended every day because I'm a Catholic, because I'm a Christian. When I hear it, when I see it, and no one seems to have any regard or alertness to like, oh wait, this could be offensive, you know. So I'm at the point where it's well, the truth's the truth. If you don't like it, tough. I'll pray for you. All the best. Goodbye. And I'm at that point now. I'm not entertaining people in my life that are just wanting to constantly debate me because of my faith. So-called friends of the past who were raised Catholic and we went to the same school and the same church once upon a time. I've just kind of fell away in life and they'll justify their actions or their own beliefs that are different. I'm like, well, you might make up your own belief, but we have the deposit of the true faith guided by the Holy Spirit in the Catholic Church. I don't just take it with blind acceptance. I would like to understand why it's that way. And please understand to them, I say to them, please understand that it's not just old men and women with beads praying and just making up rules. We have some of the greatest intellects in the world within the Catholic Church. The intellectual journey of nearly 2,000 years to give us the magisterium and deposit of faith through philosophy and theology, through science and psychology, through everything. The Catholic Church, fides et ratio, faith and reason, is not afraid of the times in order to bring itself forward with full intellectual might. And that's the problem in this day and age, as Pope Benedict even told us about years ago. The biggest threat to humanity now is the eclipse of reasoning. People no longer care about the truth. It's all about feelings. It's not about rational thoughts and logic. It's about feelings. And they might start off, and that's why I don't entertain it, because it starts off and I can focus and I can do it thanks to the few years at seminary with the philosophy and the logic and the teachings and that atmosphere of it being very intellectual. I can respect how it formated my mind to be more ready to have logical and rational discussions and openness of it and dialogue. But you'll get to a point where they get angry when they can't get beyond it. And that's where the dummy's out the pram. And that just, for me, is just... I'd expect that's what the devil does in exorcisms and things when the priest gets him. Yeah, it just goes for it. Can't handle it. An angry mind is an arrow mind. And I just don't entertain it anymore. We've got a super chat. Mikey, boss, super chat, $9.99 with love from an Irish American. Thanks very much, brother. It's very kind of you. I'm always honoured and humbled when people are generous with me like that. And it does help support the channel. I know people are out there doing it all the time asking, and I don't. Even at the Flame of Love meeting that we had yesterday, the ex-national coordinator says, this is where we usually go around and ask for donations. I was like, oh, go and you do that part then. I'm weird with that, so I don't know why. But no, thanks very much. Uh, we got Candace Owens also says she's done camouflage in her Catholic faith, even talking about dreams and Holy Spirit guidances. Well, Holy Spirit is going. We'll be dreaming dreams in these days. Does the This is Mark McIntyre. Does the Vatican know the date of the Garabandal miracle? I don't know exactly for sure, but I'd imagine under obedience to the Pope, if that was asked of, they would give it, because I know Conchita met Pope Paul VI. I don't know the ins and out of it. That's where others like Glenn Hudson or Michael at Garabandal or the family members or stuff would be better to maybe know for sure. But I do know, like even Trefantani, the family who I met there last year of Bruno, everything's with the Vatican. All the journals, the diaries, the messages, the dreams, the prophecies. The Vatican has everything, they said, copied. I know Mariana met with John Paul II. I know the visionaries have met them as well. So I do believe the Vatican has more than we do, even with all these videos and presentations and sources put together in context. The Vatican must have everything. And although we are out with the inner circle, we could clearly see how Fatima is the worst kept secret, because the before and after sources just depict exactly what was highlighted at Fatima. Like, this is it, we're in it now. That's where I see with Fatima. So yeah, folks, there's a lot. I see there's more coming through in that, but I'd be here all night if I kept it going, and I'm 20 odd minutes past the hour. So thanks for joining in. Please like, subscribe, share the videos far and wide, because I do kind of find there's been a little bit of slowing down of it for some reason, and it's probably to do with the back tail of COVID being over. I just need to keep busy, so please keep me in your prayers as well. Make sure it's nothing like spiritual attack or other reasons why sometimes I'm up and down, focused or not focused. Plus, I'm juggling a lot in life, from work to the Flame of Love to YouTube to the Encounter Ministry. I can manage that. It's just keeping a good discipline and a routine, regimented way that I need to work on. So keep me in your prayers for that, please. And I'll definitely be keeping them coming. Good to have you here, Patricia from Houston. Lovely. Oh, we just get a last super chat, and woohoo, John Lau 4222. God bless, Mark. Yeah, God bless you too. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. Really is. Thank you. So yeah, maybe these little super chats will help save up. Maybe get myself over to America, meet Xavier, and fly around a couple of states, meeting some other people like Dr. Peter and Ted Flynn, and who never knows, maybe if I'm on my way to America, you can have me at your parish or your next prayer groups or something. Wouldn't that be fun? That's what I would love to be doing. I'd love to be working from the Lord full time. And again, keep me in prayers for that, because I'm getting a sense that maybe give it a go. Take time out of work. They can offer me a sabbatical for a little while if it works. There's no guarantee, but it's something that can be put on the table, and maybe give a little focus to the full YouTube and social media world to see where I can really go with this stuff. Because people need to know the times, including Tommy Robinson and Katie Hopkins and Nigel Farage and President Trump and everyone else. But you know that's why President Putin asked Pope Francis a few years back about the third secret of Fatima, and I think Francis apparently abruptly cut him off. We don't talk about that. Not everyone can speak to Putin like that and get away with it, but apparently that's what happened. And I'm seeing things popping up like how Putin and the Russian government are declaring war against Satanism. That sounds like a converted country from Soviet communism. But yeah, in the West, we're getting all this satanic stuff that's coming out through ex-Satanists such as Zachary King on the shows, telling us the hidden stuff. Only then, after interviewing him within the past year, the Sean Combs stuff to now all the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, the West is saturated in evil, and our celebrities, our idols, or the ones we have our posters in our children's rooms, the ones that we keep watching in the Disney Channel and Netflix. That's the West that needs a big conversion, and you can see why now, as Padre Pio says, Russia will show America the road to conversion. But Europe needs converting, and we're about to see the world converted. Salvation is coming from the East. Aye, I'd love to say. I wonder what Tommy would say to that. Anyway, thanks very much, brothers and sisters. It's been great having you on here. Please share the video, and please, like I said at the start, go and enjoy yourself for 5-10 minutes. Watch those videos I've put up the past week of Tommy Canning. The short ones, I'm straight in to get those videos. The painting he's done on the Angelus, the death of St. Joseph, the Passion, and the one on Our Lady, the Confidant. The video with the music and the slow reveal is just something to enjoy, and the great gift this man has. And I hope to get him and his brother on the show to talk all things prophecy, mystic, and spiritual, as they know so much as well. So please go and watch them. And yeah, this will be the last one then. Xavier is the reason I found Mark. Thank you, Xavier. I thought, oh, it must have someone put up there earlier that he mentioned me or something. That's good to know. I was asking him actually earlier if he'd like to come back on in the next week or so to the channel. I'll see if he's replied to me yet. So yeah, thanks folks. Go and enjoy those Tommy Canning videos. Share them far and wide. And until next time, as always, take care and God bless you.